Well, I had a brush with evil the other day, and it's not quite over yet, judging by the number of texts and emails that I've received in the last 24 hours. You know that I'm part of the Interfaith Partnership of Greater St. Louis, and there's a cabinet of clergy as part of the Interfaith Partnership, and there are 34 faith traditions represented in the Greater St. Louis area. And the 34 representatives are either the highest authority on that faith tradition in St. Louis or a designee from the highest authority. So clearly I'm a designee on that by our Missouri Mid-South UCC conference minister. And I'm serving as the vice president of that organization, which means this year I'm on the statement editing committee, which I didn't know when I said yes to being the vice president of the cabinet. So the edit team for the last several days has been working on a draft statement. Anyone from within the cabinet can recommend a statement that then gets massaged and nuanced, and then we send it out to all the 34 members and hope that we receive enough votes to be able to release that statement within our communities and within the wider St. Louis community. And so I mentioned that I came up against evil, not a person on that statement editing committee necessarily, but when we were working on a statement that had been given to us by one of our members, one of the editing team suggested that we slip the word evil into the statement so that it would read, "The evil of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia." And then someone else said, "I think it's evils," because that's what an editing team does, right? It's not just the evil of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, it's the evils of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. The draft started because of Tuesday's anti-Semitic hate crime that happened just down the road in Clayton. Surely many of you have heard of what happened when some cars were lit on fire and someone painted the street with some really difficult things to read. Some of them didn't make it into the news, but what they wanted to make sure is that people did see the one that said "Death to IDF." IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, the military of the nation of Israel. And then there was a specific, very specific threat to a particular person, but that was not reported exactly in the news. And so the statement was about that and about the evil or evils of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. We have three different kinds of statements that the partnership puts out. One is a call for prayer and a statement of compassionate concern. One is a statement of conscience that speaks to an urgent moral issue, expresses condemnation or commendation, and may call for a particular response. And thirdly, we have a statement of conviction that identifies areas of shared hope for the common good and often is accompanied with resources for further study. So some are kind of quick, and then some delve deeper, and then some invite us, challenge us, give us the opportunity to go deeper into the future together. So that brush with evil, I cringed when the person wanted to put the word evil in there because I don't come from a tradition that uses the word or the idea of evil very often. But I know that for some people that language is comfortable, and I have to say it's getting more and more difficult to stay in a place where you're not talking about evil because of some of the incredibly difficult things that are happening now nearby across this land and across the globe. And I tend not to be an evil guy. I tend not to focus there. I'd much rather focus on the good and maybe talk about the places where the good is missing and talk about where we've turned away from the good and talk about how we need to turn back. And some people use the word repent, which means to turn around or turn back. So the idea of repenting from sin or evil, moving back to the common good, moving back into the places where the holy invites us to thrive, where God invites us to have the kind of love that Gabriel mentioned, where the dad ran to meet the son who was on his way home after being out and about and doing things that should not have been done. Well, Evelyn read for us from the prophet Isaiah the words, "Cease to do evil. Learn to do good. And a lot of time is spent there in the prophets telling us what exactly we can do in order to bring more good into the world and push out some of that darkness, some of those errors, some of those mistakes, or maybe evil, whatever you want to call it. Seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, plead for the widow. Turn around, create more good, move in the direction of light, move in the direction of everyone having their basic human needs met, move in the direction of justice and belonging and welcome and hospitality and generosity and grace and peace. Cease to do evil, serve one another, resist self-centeredness and self-absorption and narcissism, because that is what breaks down the good when we're only focused on ourselves, when we're obsessed with our things, me, mine. Our gospel lesson from Luke reminds us that we can be confident and assured, not fearful. The Gospels are so filled with moments where people say, "Do not be afraid," because the gospel writers know that sometimes we move into those places of fear. And so the gospel says, do not be afraid and stay alert because of the opportunities that are coming. This is often shared during Advent as we're preparing for Christmas. We think about being ready. We're in ordinary time now, and that's why we have green paraments. It's the ordinary time of the year. We don't have any holidays or holy days at this point. It's the longest season of the church. It's the time when we live out our faith, the ordinary days. And so this is also a time to be ready. Not ready for a holy day, but ready for the ordinary days, the everydays, where things are not the way they should be, not the way they could be, not aligned with the dreams and the visions and the hopes of God. And so we want to say out loud the things that we want to see, the things that we want others to experience, those good things that can push out those difficult, dark things. So I want to ask you, if you're willing, to shout out something good that you would like to see. Maybe it's something specific nearby or across this land or across the globe, something that you would like to see, something that you would like to witness, something that you would like for other people, not about the self-absorption or the narcissism, but what you would like to see for other people. And if you're willing to do that, just shout out what you would like to see. A lot of things are fading. A lot of things seem to be disappearing. A lot of the good, the common good that we have been committed to, seems to be eroding. And so we need to bring back that focus. We need to use our voices, our ways, our resources to help multiply that good. The other day we were at the Arch, or as my family visiting Boston said, the Arch. And down in the museum, there was an exhibit that just briefly mentioned something that's been gnawing at me. And that's the idea that when the Louisiana Purchase happened, the women in Missouri got fewer rights. Because up until that point, in this space, there were women who owned property, there were women who were really engaged in commerce, partly because some of the men were away doing the fur trading and other things, but then they had their rights taken away. It gnawed at me because it's not history. It's now. People's rights being taken away systematically, slowly and or quickly, people's rights being taken away. I'm reminded of a photograph that circulates pretty often of Iranian women who were in parliament, Iranian women in parliament in the 1970s. And how things can change quickly or slowly quickly, and that we need to hold on to them. I started a show the other day on the treadmill, and I can't remember the name or the streaming service, so I'll have to figure that out. But it talked about someone who kept waking up on the same day. It wasn't Groundhog Day. It was the 1st of July. And so then, of course, every time he woke up, he tried to fix some of the things that had gone wrong. We know what has gone wrong. Every day when we wake up, we see more of the things that seem terribly wrong. From our tradition, from our perspective, a lot of our core values and the ways that we think we should be active in the world are falling apart. And so we know each day, and we know from history where things have gone astray and where we can be more focused, where we can put our energy and our time and our spirit, where our partnerships can lead us to action. I went to a youth ministry workshop decades ago, and the speaker got us involved in this conversation, kind of a mantra. He said, now when we work with our kids, we hear a lot of things from our church and from the parents and from our schools. We tell the kids that they should eat well so that they can sleep well, so that they can get up and get to school and do well in school, so they can get good grades, so that they can get into the right college, so that they can get a good job, so they can make lots of money, so they can buy a lot of stuff. And they said that the trail is always to buy a lot of stuff. That seems to be the end goal of all of the things that we're telling the next generation. Do really well so you can have a lot of stuff. And so the conversation was about trying to turn things around, turn and return to the things that are of God's dream and God's vision, so that all people will be served, so that not too many people have too many things and too many people have too few things, so that all will be honored and cherished, so that all will be seen and heard, so that we will be able to experience justice together. So the piece from the gospel lesson that Evelyn shared with me that has been staying with me, there's a lot in that packed little section of the Gospel of Luke. But it says that blessed are those slaves whom the master finds alert when he comes. He will fasten his belt and have them sit down to eat, and he will come and serve them. It's a little bit like Undercover Boss, right? So the master finds his way to the table, but he's not sitting there being served. He's the one with the apron on. He's the one serving. He's the one that's turned the equation so that he can see and feel what it's like to be on the other side. We don't know exactly how that unfolded, if the servants received that well, or if they struggled and tried to push him to be the master again, like we hear when Jesus tries to tell the disciples sometimes that they need to receive blessing from him, and they get all uptight and anxious about it because there's a certain order that things should be in, the disciples thought. I heard an interview the other day about a very well-known person who said their first job was waiting on tables. And they said that they really have this hope that more and more people in their lives get to wait on tables so that they can feel what it's like to be a servant. Some of us have waited on tables many times in our lives, and it really gives you a different perspective. And it allows the people who serve you in the future to get much better tips. We had a children's time many moons ago. It was on a Labor Day where we talked for a minute with the kids about who helped them to get here to church. We talked about the fact that they had running water in their house, that they had clothes on, that they had toothpaste, that they arrived here in some vehicle, and so they were on the roads that were painted and kept up, and the traffic lights. And we talked about all the people that it took just to get us here, all the people that we should be grateful for, and to remember that we are meant to serve each other, that none of us is self-sufficient, that we need to be committed to each other, we need to serve each other and recognize that we are all the same. Jesus was an incredible example of servant leadership. This idea of the master who comes home from the wedding banquet and serves the servants. Jesus always flipped it over, turned it around, turned toward people, used his gifts for others. He didn't sit in the temple and wait for people to come to him. He went out to the streets and spent time with people, spent intimate time with the disciples and the other friends. He washed their feet. Do you remember that he took off the towel that was around him and used it to dry the feet of the disciples after he washed them? Clergy wear stoles to remind us of servanthood, servant leadership. that Jesus even said, I came to serve, not to be served. He was very clear about what it means to serve each other, what it means to be in reciprocal relationship, what it means to be tied together. He sought out the marginalized. We remember that he did not stay in one place. He went time and again to new places, even places that people thought he shouldn't go, because he wanted to meet the people who were underserved, the people who needed to be pulled in, the people who needed to experience compassion and the gentleness and strength of his touch. He also spent time apart. He spent time alone. Part of being a servant leader is also recognizing when you need to be refreshed, when you do need that other to serve you, where you need to be fed and encouraged and filled so that you have something to give. And Jesus always went further and further in his relationship with people to serve them and to encourage them, to challenge them to serve each other. And so that's why he told this story. That's why we have the prodigal son. That's why we have the Good Samaritan story. That's why he always talked about being there for others and recognizing where good is absent, recognizing where the other things have fallen away, and where there needs to be restoration and a refreshment and a renewal of commitment to that common good. We can't always be that focused. We can't always be on it. We can't always be this kind of person. And we get good support from the scriptures. You remember the Good Samaritan story where two just walked by because they were very busy. And the Good Samaritan stopped because they were ready. They were ready with their gifts, with their resources, with their compassion. We remember Moses, and we remember Mary, and we remember Joseph, who at first, when they were asked, didn't think that they could do it. They didn't think that they were equipped. They didn't think that they were prepared. They didn't think they had all of the things necessary, but they were called just the same, and they were invited to participate. You remember Jonah, who went in the exact opposite direction when God called him. And Esther, Queen Esther, who also wasn't sure that she was equipped, but she was told, Esther, what if you are in power right now for this very moment, for such a time as this, the scripture says. And so we find ourselves in a very difficult moment. And I do think when someone is perusing a history book, if we have books, if someone is at a museum, or if someone's listening intently to the story of this time, it will be complicated and it will be simple. It will be confounding and it'll be very clear that we need to engage in the common good. We need to make room for the good things. We need to focus not on the things that are fleeting and the things that are disintegrating, but we need to rescue and defend and plead. Those are some of the words in the gospel lesson: to rescue and defend and plead. We have work to do. We have work to do alone. We have work to do together. We have work to do in partnerships. So I want to conclude a little bit of that statement process that we've been working on with the Interfaith Partnership. The statement did not pass, and so it's not going to be shared. I would love to read it to you, but I cannot read it to you because it didn't pass. And there's all kinds of consternation now, and we have to kind of figure out, why did this statement not pass that was talking about the common good? Why did a statement prepared by the Interfaith Partnership not get enough votes from the leaders of our faith groups in St. Louis? That might also be saying too much, but we have work to do. Each and every one of us, even the people that we think are well aligned with us and have the same kind of spirit and the same kind of spunk and the same kind of influence and inspiration. But it's not easy. Again, this time will be seen as complicated but clear, confounding and simple. And we have to focus and stay in it and be committed to the common good. Please pray with us. Holy One, it does seem so simple in the scriptures. You invite us to just do it, to cease the evil, to seek justice, to rescue and plead and defend. And so guide us into places where it is easy, and guide us into places where we have to roll up our sleeves and be creative and be committed, to be inspired, and sometimes to get out of the way, to listen intently, deeply, widely to others, because we haven't figured it all out as individuals or communities. We each have a piece of the puzzle, and so bring us together where we can turn those puzzle pieces and return to you and return to each other. Help us to focus on the things that build us up, to notice where things are eroding, and to do the work to undergird them again, to infuse them with spirit, with your dreams and your hopes, to know that we are fully equipped to do the work you call us to, and that you do not leave us to do this work alone, and that we have the example, the model, the teacher, the encourager, and the inspirer. And so help us to be patient, to take our deep breaths, and to know that we don't have the luxury of being loose or late, that the time is now. For such a time as this, you have brought us to this place, this sanctuary, safe, sacred space, so that we can focus and so that we can leave prepared and more passionate about your work and our work together. Amen.